you only need a few simple ingredients that you have in your house. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some kind of fruit juice, you're going to need a source of sugar, and you're going to need yeast and some kind of airlock. I'm going to be going into more depth on each of these ingredients and how they're used and how you can make your own, but first I want to start off on the juice, which is arguably the most important part. And you'll notice that normally I would have taken the labels off of these. I don't want to promote any brands. However, I wanted to show you the labels because it's very important when you're shopping that you get the right kind of juice. So if you'll notice, I got kind of grape juice, cranberry juice, and a lemonade. This one's an experiment. I haven't tried grape juice yet, but cranberry and lemonade work for sure. And you'll notice that the grape juice and the cranberry juice both say that they have 120% of your daily vitamin C. So this one has 100% vitamin C. So that's great, you know, it has a ton of vitamin C, you'll live forever. But if you'll notice, what that actually means is the vitamin C is ascorbic acid. And so what they're doing is they're just adding a ton of vitamin C and using it as a preservative. If you put so much vitamin C, it, you know, kind of discourages the growth of bacteria. And what you're trying to do is get yeast to grow. So we're going to have to get rid of this vitamin C in here. And I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. The lemonade does not have the vitamin C. So you don't have to do anything to the lemonade if it doesn't have the vitamin C. If you notice, I have two generic brands here. The grape juice is a name brand. I chose this over the generic brand just because it was the same price, and this one only had ascorbic acid, but the generic had citric acid, which I don't know how to deal with, but I can teach you how to deal with the ascorbic acid. So for the next step, I'm going to tell you that once you start this, you're going to need to work a little bit faster, because right now everything inside of these containers is sterile. It's all been pasteurized, it's all, you know, there's no bacteria inside of it, so nothing's going to grow. It might go bad eventually, but there's nothing living inside of it. However, once you break this seal, you take the top off, it's going to let air in and stuff can start growing. So once you open this up, you're going to just need to work a little faster to make sure you don't get anything growing before you get your yeast growing. So what you want to do to get rid of this vitamin C is you're going to want to heat it up, because this vitamin C, it turns out, is actually it's not a very strong compound in the terms that it breaks down if you get it too hot. So what I've done is I've taken this cranberry juice and I put it in my little electric tea kettle here. And what this guy is going to do is I'm just going to boil it a couple times just to get it hot enough, and it's going to, you're going to lose some water, you're going to lose some of the juice, but it's going to break down that vitamin C. And then once it cools down enough, you can pour it back in your container, and it's going to have your cranberry juice, but without the vitamin C in it, which you don't want. And this is the part that takes the longest, because you have to wait before this guy cools down before you pour back in here, because you will melt this, which is a mistake I've made. Okay, so now that I've boiled the cranberry juice a couple times, I'm waiting for it to cool off. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you how to get started on this lemonade here. So this is going to be the next step. I'm going to do the grape juice off camera, but it's going to be the same steps where I've just opening this up, putting in the kettle and boiling it and waiting for it to cool off. So I'm going to show you how to get started with the lemonade and the sugar, which is our next step. And you're going to repeat this next step with all of the other juices. But this one, you just don't have to boil first. So this next step I've decided to do outside because it can kind of cause a bit of a mess. So I figured outside would be the best place for it. First though, I'm going to teach you a little bit about the science behind this. So Yeast is a fungus, and the thing with a fungus is that it needs a food source, and it's going to make a waste product. And what yeast does is it eats sugar, and it poops out alcohol and carbon dioxide. And we have a way to deal with the carbon dioxide, which I'll teach you later, but the important step right now is that you want to put as much sugar as possible into your mixture, because the more sugar there is, the more alcohol you're going to get. So it's more food source. So this lemonade already has sugar in it. You know, it's going to have its sugar content. I think this one's got just says sugar, but we want it to be higher. So we want to put as much sugar as we can possibly dissolve into this lemonade, which will help the bacteria grow, and it'll help the fungus grow, and help the give it more of a food source. And what I want to do is I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to just pour out a little bit of it into this glass, which I'll enjoy later. Just so we have a little bit more space for the sugar. Because this is going to be basically a syrup. So I'm going to, I dumped out a little bit of the lemonade so that I can displace it with the sugar content, and I'm going to be pouring this bag of sugar into this lemonade here. See, after putting the sugar in, the basically water lines back up to the top already. So all of this liquid in here was replaced with sugar. So you're adding a ton of sugar to this thing. I could probably even add more, but I'm gonna stop with this. I've already shaken this up, so I've already gotten this all to dissolve in here, but the sugar kind of was a line up to about halfway here. So there was this much sugar that I added to it, and I just dissolved it into this whole liquid. And I've taken off the label so you can see that it's all dissolved, and it's ready for the next step. Okay, now that the lemonade has been full of sugar, we're ready to move on to the next step, which is the yeast. And for this step, you can really use any type of yeast. But the type of yeast you use will determine how high the alcohol content can get. What I've done is I've used basically just baking yeast from any grocery store, but you can get wine yeast or champagne yeast and get higher alcohol content. The thing with the baker's yeast is that once the alcohol content gets too high, it'll kills off the fungus. You can add any sort of yeast. You can use even this active dry stuff, which I won't be using. I already have a culture here of just leftover yeast from previous batches, and this is already activated, it's already growing, so this stuff's ready to be dumped in. So you just add a little bit of this stuff, pour it into your lemonade or your juices, and you're ready to go on to the next step. I will warn you though, is that if you're boiling your juice like I will be with this grape juice, it needs to be cold first. So it can't be hot. If it's a little warm, it's fine, but don't want it too hot, because what happens is if your juice is too hot when you add the yeast, you'll kill the yeast just from cooking it to death. Also, I'll notice that I'll tell you that this stuff, you're supposed to, if you want to make sure it works, you can put in some warm water before you dump it in, just to make sure it's happy before it gets put in your juice. But it'll be okay without it, but if you want to be professional about it, you can do that. I just wanted to show you the act of me adding the yeast to it, just to show you how little you actually need. Because once you get it started, the yeast will start reproducing and growing on its own, so you need a little bit just to get it started. And yeah, even that right there should be more than enough to get it started. A little bit more just to be sure, because I have it, but yeah, that's more than enough. And now the yeast is added, it's going to start brewing. Now that your yeast has been added, it's going to start producing carbon dioxide, which, if I leave this lid on, will cause this whole bottle to explode, which we don't want to do. So we need something to let the inside air out, but won't let the outside air back into it. And to do this, we need something called an airlock, and an airlock does precisely that. It locks the air. And you can buy airlocks online. They're a couple dollars. You can probably get it from a some sort of wine store or something like that. But my thinking is that if you're going to be making your own stuff at home, you want to do it from just things that you can find around your house. And because otherwise, you know, you could just go to the store and buy some professional stuff for not much more. So we're trying to save money here. And what I've done is I've gone and made my own airlock, which is this guy here. And this is just a couple straws with some duct tape holding the junctions together. And what this is doing is this screws on the cap. I've sealed the hole with some sort of caulk. If it can focus. Well, you get the point. But what this does, it lets the air go through the straw, and this goes down into a water bottle. And the bubbles come out the straw at the end and then come up through the water, but then the air from the outside can't go back down to the water. So this gets the inside air out, and it gives you a nice little visual effect that that it's actually working, because you can see the bubbles coming out of the water, which I like. What you probably can do if you really want to go simple is if you just unscrew the cap a little bit, it'll let the pressure from the inside escape, but the pressure on the outside won't be enough to force the air back in. So this, you probably will be okay with that, but you just don't want to let the outside air in, because like I said before, bacteria will start growing in here, and you don't want that. You only want the fungus, the yeast. So you want to keep the outside air from getting in, so this stays with just the yeast inside and only lets that grow. After a while, the yeast will be strong enough to fight off the bacteria, and the alcohol content as well should keep bacteria from growing. But right now at this stage, this is a very vulnerable batch, so you want to make sure that the outside air does not get in here. Okay, as you can see, now that this lemonade is ready, you're going to want to put it in a warm place for a couple days. And I have my airlock set up right here. I'm going to put this end of the straw into the water bottle so that the air can't get inside. This straw is going to fill up with carbon dioxide, so nothing's going to grow in here. And I washed it out before putting it on, so it's all clean. And this will take about a week. You'll know it's done when you see the bubbles stop coming out, and most of this yeast will all settle down to the bottom. And you'll find you'll have a lot more at the end. And you don't want to get this too hot. You probably want to keep it below 30 degrees centigrade, just so that the alcohol, if you get the yeast too hot, it'll start producing other types of alcohol, which you don't really want. You want just the ethanol. So I thought I'd just show you what your end result is supposed to look like. So the ones we worked on today are over brewing right now, and they're gonna sit there for a good part of the next week, maybe up to 9 days, depending on how it turns out. What we have here is this guy on the right. He is mostly done, but you'll notice that it is much more opaque than the one on the left here. And this guy still has a lot of yeast left in him. As you can see, there's still bubbles on the top. There's still, I don't think you can see in the video, but there's still, you know, yeast fermenting in here. And this will sit there for a little bit. What I've gone and done is I've taken it off the airlock a little bit sooner and kind of sealed the cap. And what you can get is if you don't do it too late or too soon, you can seal the cap and you can get some carbonation in there just from the bubbles. You don't want to do it too soon though, because the gases might explode your bottle, which is not what you want. So you don't want to do it too soon and get too much carbonation, you'll blow up your bottle, or do it too late and your yeast will already be dead. And you'll notice this guy is still full of yeast. After a while, after it sits for a bit and the yeast dies, it'll all fall down to the bottom, and I think you might be able to see, yeah, there's a little bit of some yeast that's collected down the bottom there. And when this is all done, you can just pour this off and get most of the yeast out that way. A little bit in there is not going to hurt you. And this guy on the left here has been sitting for much longer. I've taken out most of the yeast. There's still a little bit in the bottom, but as you can see, it gets much more clear. And this is apple juice, I should say, by the way. Depending on the juice, it won't go totally clear. Like lemonade won't, cranberry juice might, but apple juice does. So if you're seeing this, you know it's definitely done. You can even drink this. It will just have some yeast in it, as long as you don't mind that. Just wanted to thank you for watching and show you the rainbow of colors that we have here. The best advice I can give is just to experiment, see what you like, and try different stuff out. As you see, I've tried a bunch of different juices, see what I like. I found that the apple juice has the highest alcohol content if you're looking for that. The lemonade seems to, well, the acid in the lemonade seems to not help the yeast out, so you get a little bit less alcohol in these guys. I'm guessing from my research I've done, I would say this gets about 6 to 8% alcohol. This is probably 5 to 6. I don't know about the cranberry juice. This is pretty comparable to the lemonade as far as what I can tell. The grape juice is a new experiment. I don't know how that one will turn out, but I'm assuming it'll probably be like the apple juice. So with that knowledge, hope you enjoy and good luck. Thanks for watching.